Hey, house community, you're watching House Arrest. It looks like my background is not a video of me, so let me get myself in here. Just a second. Where did I go? Okay. I think I'm here. I'm wondering if someone can comment in the stream if you can see me on the live stream. That would be awesome. Sorry, just having a small technical difficulty. Can you see me? I know we have a couple of viewers. All right. I'm just going to check on Facebook if you guys can see me. This usually doesn't happen, but I just want to make sure that we're all good. Yeah, looks like you cannot see me. So let's try this again. I don't know why it's not working. This is so strange. All right, well, in the meantime, you can hear me fiddling around on StreamYard as I try to sort this out. Overlay, I got it. Okay, we're good. We are live. Thanks for spending 2 minutes with me. Just sorting all of that out, but we're good. We are strong and better than ever. As you can tell, I am sitting tonight in my Sukkah. It's the festival of Sukkot, the holiday of Sukkot, and I thought it would be fitting to be here tonight. You can see some twinkly lights. We actually have a window on the side here and lots of decorations. So I'm excited to be here. A little bit freezing, but it's worth it for sure. So it's that time of year again where the leaves change color, the temperatures hover just over single digits, and it's also the time when the Jews begin to build shed-like structures in our own yards and sit in them for a week, or should I say freeze in them, like I feel right now, get soaked in them sometimes. So it's Sukkot, and that's what it's all about. These structures for some people actually become a temporary home. We leave our indoor heating and our comfortable couches and beds and instead sit in the outdoors and reflect on the history of the Jewish people who, while wandering in the desert, actually lived in similar huts so long ago. In Israel right now, yards are littered with 3 walled homes all over the place, and gardens are filled with song. Here in Canada, it's a little bit less convenient to find joy in this holiday, just considering the weather, but you know, we try. Here I am. My nose is turning redder and redder. This sukkah actually that I'm in, these very walls have been put up and taken down year after year after year. These same twinkly lights have bordered the ceiling here, and the same posters plaster the walls each year. It's really a part of my home and my experience being home, despite the fact that it only stands for 1 week every year. So I want to know, considering this, what makes a house a home? Why does this sukkah feel so much a part of my home, even though it's only here for 1 week every year? Which leads me to wonder more in general, what is a home? Is it a safe space? Is it a place of belonging? Is it a place for our belongings? And I want to find that all out. So before I freeze completely tonight, I'm going to bring on our guest to the show so they can get talking and I'll try and warm up a little. First, I'd like to introduce Julie and David onto the stream. There they are. Hey, Julie. Hey, David. How are you?
Excellent.
Hey, Adina. Doing great.
For sitting through with me for that difficult introduction. A couple technical difficulties. So let me do a quick intro. Julie is the marketing and operation manager at Riverwood Senior Living in Alliston, Ontario. She works with her family-run business for that's been going for over 30 years, and a hobby for hers is the outdoors, the changing of the seasons, and especially the fall colors. Julie also loves hiking and skiing. Next, we have David Gash with us tonight. David's a commercial real estate advisor with Marcus and Millichamp board director, and he's the board director of Kehila's UJA's affordable housing division. Did I get that right, David?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And lastly, I'm going to add our third guest to the stream, Shiraz Uri. Hey, Shiraz, welcome. Shiraz's Wi-Fi is a little tricky tonight, so I'm not sure if can hear us. Shiraz, can you hear us? Yeah. Hi, Shiraz. How are you?
Hello.
So Shiraz Uri is one of my oldest and greatest friends. She studied architectural engineering in university and is currently working in the baking industry. And I'm really excited to have the three of you here tonight to talk about all things related to home. So let's get started. Before we begin, I thought it would be fun to just warm up with a little bit of a game. I thought we could just spend some time recalling memories from our childhood homes, the place where we spent so much of our lives and where really formative things happen, just to start off the conversation. So I want to know, where were you when you lost your first tooth? Anyone remember? I don't remember.
I don't think I remember exactly where I was per se, but I do remember sleeping, going to sleep that night and waking up and finding money underneath my pillow.
The tooth.
And so it's just, I learned this concept of the tooth fairy ever since that moment. I think I might have been 4 or 5 years old, and I was just like, there's money under my pillow, and I lost a tooth. And I remember, my parents and my brother and I had been in our home this was the home my brother and I were kind of born into. It wasn't the same home we ended up living in throughout our teenage years, but I remember waking up that very first morning in our first home that we ever grew up in, before we moved to another home in the area, when my brother and I were in more of the junior high school age. And I remember being in that first home, losing that first tooth. And I don't remember where I was per se when I lost it, but I do remember that idea of, I lifted up my pillow the next morning and there was money underneath. And what's the significance behind that? And my mother always just said, there's a tooth fairy. And every time you lose a tooth, there's money under the pillow. So I don't remember where I was, but I do remember learning that concept from a very young age.
I like that. That's such a nice childhood memory. What about you, David? Do you remember where you lost your first tooth, a tooth, anything to do with
that? Well, for me, I'm notorious for not having too many clear, distinct early memories, unfortunately. But I can definitely recant that most of my teeth fell out more or less the same way. I was a wiggler, and so whenever I felt one happening, it was not necessarily OCD, but it was something to fidget with. So I definitely it probably was my own dentist. Save my dentist a few bucks. I
think I actually vaguely remember being at the top of my stairs, just sort of running out from the bathroom upstairs with a tooth in my hand. So excited. Okay, Shiraz is having some technical difficulties. She is moving downstairs. Hopefully that will work. We'll just remove her from the stream for now. Okay, what color was your first bedroom wall?
blue and with yellow like squares.
I think for me it was pink, but like it was a patterny floral type of setup. But I remember my mom would always talk about this snuggly chair that used to be in my room that if I wasn't sleeping in my bed, even when I was a toddler, she'd have to literally rock me in this one quote snuggly chair so I would fall asleep. And then she ended up sleeping with me in that chair. But yeah, I if I recall correctly, it was a very light colored room, but I think I remember more of that chair than I do anything else because that's all my mother kept talking about from the time I was a little kid. Even now, like well, when I was having trouble sleeping, she'd put me in that chair. The next thing I knew, I passed out.
That's so sweet. Shiraz, hopefully your connection's a little better here. The question was, what color was your first bedroom wall?
Mine was pink.
Pink.
For so many years, I was like obsessed with pink since I was young.
That's cute. Mine was like my first bedroom. Well, I actually shared a room until I was 16. So I don't know. It was like there were a few renditions of like orange and blue, and I don't know. Right now they're white. Did you guys have any childhood pets?
I've grown up with dogs. When my parents got married, they each had a dog. So when my brother and I were born, there were already 2 dogs in our home. But then when they both passed, we didn't have any pets until when I went away to university in second year. My parents got a chocolate lab because my brother has special needs. And so we got our chocolate lab, Annie, to be a service dog for him. He has autism. And so she was able to travel with us. She's also able to go into restaurants, be a support for him. He holds onto her handle and she goes with us everywhere. And recently, about a year ago, we got another chocolate lab from the same breeder. His name's Rocky. He's about a year and a half old now, but we're hoping to train him to be a seizure dog for my brother as well. So we've grown up around pets. We didn't have a dog from the time we were probably 4 or 5 until I was probably 18 or 19. So there was a huge chunk of time where we didn't have a pet at home. We had 2 fish, but we were younger. But they weren't as significant as having like a dog or a cat or anything like that. But the last 5 years we've had a dog, and then now we have 2, and it's just so nice having that animal back, in my parents' lives and our lives, and especially they can both now benefit my brother, who in so many different ways that we never even
They've become a part of the family.
Exactly.
Shiraz, I know you have a dog that you grew up with.
Yeah, I've had a Shih Tzu since I was about 7, and he's still going. He's still doing great. He's like 16 now.
That's incredible.
Still kicking. He's doing well.
And last question for you guys: what was your favorite room in your house? David, I'll turn to you first. If you could.
That's an easy one for me. Growing up, is that I had basically a basement playroom siloed off with a big TV and a big Lego table, and that was like my nirvana as a kid. Was cartoons, and while I was just playing around with this big Lego table set.
Love that.
I think for me, it wasn't necessarily one room in our first home that I grew up into over the course of my childhood. For me, it was always the backyard because we were very close to our neighbors on either side of us, and so all the kids would always be playing together and going around the neighborhood, whether it was for Halloween and we would go trick or treating together, or we would just literally spend a day in each other's backyards and then even go into each other's houses at some point. And all the parents made us lunches and we all just played in each other's yards. So I think for us, it was mostly spending that time outside when we could. And then if we weren't spending that time outside, we were literally in somebody's basement. So.
Yeah, that's great. Shiraz, what about you?
For me, I think it was the kitchen. My mom always cooked, every single day. Something was always happening in the kitchen, and I just love to sit at the table, at the kitchen table, and just eat the food. And I would do my homework growing up, and something was always happening in the kitchen.
So nice, very family-oriented place.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone ends up in the kitchen at some point, for sure. So I think we're ready to dive into some questions. I'm wondering for each of you, considering your professional background and also your personal background, how would you define a home and the importance of a home? David, I'm really curious to turn to you first, especially considering your work with affordable housing.
Sure. Well, I think the first element of, fulfilling, what is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and being shelter front and center on it, is providing that sense of security and consistency, and that, first you have to have, a safe space and have that space be continuous for you to start building a life within it. I think at the core principle, that's where it set the foundation.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that, because I actually, as I was thinking about this episode, I actually noted Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the second one, sort of from the bottom as you build that pyramid, is safety, which includes like security and, exactly what you said, David. But I wonder, is a house and a home the same thing in that respect? Like, where does a home specifically fit into this hierarchy, if you think it does?
Well, that's a good distinction to delineate. Which I'd say the house first, the physical space of the house sets the stage, where then you have to have that element of comfort and stability to then bring the I'm not sure how else to say the spirit, the ruah of your home within that, and make it your own, I'd say.
So the security is actually twofold. It's one, like the literal stability of the structure, but then it's sort of what it's filled with is another form of.
Yeah, there's a double entendre there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And Shiraz, I'll turn to you. Considering your educational background, with the focus on architecture, like when you think of the word house, what comes to mind? And when you think of the word home, is it different? Is it the same?
Yeah, for me, I think houses are just concrete. They stay in the same place. You have family moving in, and then a couple years later, new family moving in. A home to me is something that individuals create independently of where they are. Like, I think if we all swapped homes, we could each make it our own. That's just what I think. I think that the structure is obviously really important for safety, and to create a safe space. But I think that we're all able to do that regardless of which room it is or what kind of house it is.
And Julie, I'm also curious for your perspective, because working with senior living, I know, especially now with the pandemic, there's sort of a lot of questions about the sort of the place of seniors and the elderly in our community. And I don't know if anyone really has the strong desire to, live in one of these homes ideally. So how do you, in your professional capacity, make sure that these senior residences are like as much of a home as possible, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question to pose, because it's really hard right now for the outside community to really distinguish between long-term care and retirement. And I think the biggest thing with retirement and how we can make ourselves stand out more is having that essence of community, because we're showing what activities are going on within the home between the residents. It's showing that they are 6 feet apart, engaging in, whether it's something in the kitchen, in baking, or they're, playing a game outside, socially distance, or even just going to walk in their local neighborhoods where the homes are located. So I think for us to really distinguish retirement, we basically say, like, you're living in a community with other people that, are looking for the same thing. They're looking for that human interaction. They're looking for that active lifestyle, and they're proud of where they came from, and they want to share that within their new community with others that have that similar bond.
So considering all of these definitions of houses versus homes, and how we make a house into a home, in your opinions, where do you think Sukkot and the building of these temporary structures, which, like I said in my intro, sort of feel like quite homey, like this is like this tiny little sukkah. I don't know if you can tell, but you can barely fit the 5 members of my family in here. How does this building of temporary structures signify our understanding of our permanent ones, and what's actually important about the permanent ones, or what's sort of less important, so that we're able to enjoy these temporary structures, if that makes sense? Shiraz, I can see you nodding a bit. Maybe I'll turn to you.
Yeah, I think it's just like you said, people eat in a sukkah, people sleep in the sukkah. I think it's, 4 walls around you. It's about safety, it's about security, and not having electricity or a bathroom or some of the things that we kind of rely on today. Like we don't need that in order to make it a home, and I think that's something really important to think about. And yeah, I think that every family makes their sukkah their second home.
Yeah, that's interesting. David, do you have a thought on that as well? Oh, sorry, I muted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, certainly. With that, sort of part of, there's a distinct element of the sukkah itself being symbolizing of protection as well. And with that, giving us, a private space to practice our, ritual, sort of shows that, the element, back to your distinction on house versus home, that a home can sort of, may also be more of a fluid concept, that it's not just where you are, but more so who you're with. And if you're comfortable and safe and protected, in your space, you can turn that into, anywhere almost, into a home environment.
And I think to say that, because from what I'm getting from that, it's sort of like your priorities are put into a sort of different light. Like it turns out that it's not your flat screen TV that makes your house a home. It's really like the people that you're watching with. And just instinctively, like what we've all been thinking, I think, in the past couple of months with the pandemic, is that it's also been an opportunity for us to recognize like what's actually important, right? Sort of like the glitz and the glam is sort of, taken off, and it's like, oh, actually, my health is more important than, all of these other things that took up so much of my time before.
Yeah, and if I can jump in there also, speaking both personally and professionally, I think professionally, a lot of the residents that come into the retirement home, they're looking for more than just, living a healthy life and continuing to live that healthy life. They realize that, or their children, so like our parents and their children realize that their loved ones can't live on their quote own anymore in their own structure. So they move to a new structure where they can get taken care of the way they need to get taken care of, but still have that other essence of home in the fact that they have that built community surrounding them, so they can meet new people, create further connections within that same structure where they're all in the same position, where they may not be able to live in their own structures anymore, but now they're united and they can live, in their own areas, but still come together and engage in different activities and take part in various events that go on throughout any year. Obviously, COVID has changed a lot of that, and everything is now socially distant, but they still have that face-to-face interaction, even though it is from 6 feet apart. And even from a personal perspective too, I think, the last couple of years of my life, I've realized, the difference now between a house and a home in a lot of ways. Like, what David was referring to is the security. We need that structure to have a heated place to sleep when it's cold outside and it's minus 40, and we don't want to sleep outside when it's minus 40 degrees outside. But like, you may have those structures to take care of us so we can stay healthy and live our independent and full lives. But it is very much the people that we surround ourselves with that create that essence of home and community. That can be found within, or it can even be found outside when you're going to different events. Even now, 6 feet apart, just having that in-person interaction with others just makes you feel like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Right. And I think just to jump in there, even having this discussion between what is the difference between a house and a home is a kind of privileged discussion to be able to have, because we are all luckily in the position to feel like we have something to call home, and at the very least something to call a house or a place to live. And David, I just want to turn to you. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your work with affordable housing, and what's the word on the street these days. I know that um, at least from what I understand, like the numbers of homeless people have gone up, and the shelters aren't able to accommodate as many because of social distancing measures and whatnot. And like affordable housing is just a big issue on my mind these days, and I'd love to hear a little bit of insight from your perspective.
Sure. Yeah, I thank you for the opportunity because, and for my, interest, personal interest in community and professional work in real estate, this affordable housing charity catering to in and around the Jewish community is definitely where my passions collide. And so it's as soon as I heard about it, I called the director and asked how can I start getting involved. That was in 2018. And so what I've learned, going through the experience of, so the organization is called Kahila. It's affiliated with the UJA Federation. And we focus on, there's two programs to it. First, we manage a small portfolio of apartment buildings totaling about 400 units. And that's meant for people of lower income, people who need accessible housing, for disability, and then people who are just vulnerable. It could be people coming from shelters, or people. Our largest demographic are Holocaust survivors, and so that's one aspect. And that's and that one's not specifically, catering towards the Jewish community, because we can't have any discriminatory housing, and so that's completely equal. And then the other pocket, the program, is part of, I'd say, the Jewish community's social safety net, which is a rental assistance program for people who qualify, having as little, between usually around 60-70% of their income would otherwise be going towards just their cost of rent and their cost of living. We provide them bursaries, monthly bursaries of between $200 to $300 to help take that load off, and making sure that they can afford their house, or not their house, it's usually rental properties. And so we're subsidizing their rental assistance program. And with that, we last year, it's all driven through donations, which is 100% of the money we raise goes directly to injecting and assisting families. And for every $3,600 we raise, is about a year's subsidy for families. And we collaborate with Jewish Family and Child and the social services of the Jewish community to also ensure that these people, let's say if it's a widowed or a mother, escaping, let's say in a domestic violence per se, we will then partner with other organizations to address the problem more holistically. And that will, if they qualify for our rental assistance, they should also be participating in some more social services for more balanced reintegration.
So really what it sounds like you're doing is incredible is sort of providing, again, both facets of the word security, right? Like you're giving them the physical needs, and then also the opportunity to make the place a real home, which is really incredible. I didn't even know about the initiative, but I'd also love to get it.
Yeah, and certainly allowing them to build a life from otherwise, and helping them try to escape poverty in many cases,
Right.
which is a pretty big cycle where offering someone a home is, yeah, you're right, that stability.
And Shira, Yep, everyone there.
Yeah.
With the conversations you've had with people, I'm wondering, where is your mind at when it comes to people who perhaps don't have homes and need that sort of like security in other ways? I'm wondering, like, if in your education you ever sort of talked about initiatives or creative ways to deal.
I'm not sure. Shira,
It
you
might
look
be
okay.
Adina.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was me again. I can continue.
Please, yeah.
Yeah. So in my program, we focused a lot on sustainability. And one of the things that we looked at was tiny homes. Um, and it was a more affordable way to create housing for one in terms of space. It's more condensed, and also it's just a more sustainable way of living instead of, let's say, for example, suburbs where you have a bunch of houses, you need a car. So we touched upon that. We also touched upon creating different zoning so that everything is accessible within walking distance, again, so that people don't have to rely on cars or like different modes of transportation, which I think is really important. And yeah, I think that's it.
Well, I really appreciate all of your perspectives and your thoughts on this issue. I sincerely apologize for the lapse at the beginning, and I think my internet just cut out a little bit, but thank you for soldiering through with us. It's been a really interesting discussion on houses and homes, and there's plenty more to discuss, but I really appreciate your time for tonight. Thank you so much for coming on, and Chag Sameach. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the holiday, and thank you to all of our viewers for watching. Good night.
Chag Sameach.
Us, man.